Hey folks, Russ Bailey here from BrushPile Fishing. I want to welcome you. We've got a little special segment for you. As you know, a couple months ago we did a segment where we went live with William Oliver and Tommy Hankins and John Harrison, and it was basically a seminar format where you could ask questions. They described their favorite patterns for that early spring bite. The reason we did that and the reason we're going to do this today is, as you know, COVID closed down most of the boat and tackle shows for the winter. I know that the ones that I do seminars in, Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, Indianapolis, all of those got canceled. So we wanted to try to do some free seminars for folks. So we did that early spring. So today we're going to concentrate on summer patterns. And the reason we're going to do this is we want it to be current so you can get out and try some of these things right now. There's a lot of different ways to summer fish, and we just picked one pattern. We may do another one in a couple weeks, but today I want to concentrate with a little help from a couple friends, of course, Les Smith and John Harrison. We're going to be showing you some video clips, and when we're done, if you haven't checked out these two shows, make sure you do, because it's going to correspond with what we're talking about today. But we're going to talk about power trolling in the summer months. If you don't know what power trolling is, it's spider rigging. You've got all the rods up front, and instead of hovering over a brush pile or hovering over something, you're actually moving pretty good, anywhere from 1 to 1.5 miles per hour. The key is, there's a couple keys actually: size of weights that you're using based on the speed and what depth of water you're in, but also matching what kind of bait the fish in your area like. I'm not going to use the same size bait here in Ohio that I would be using down in Sardis or Arca Butler or anything like that, where the fish want baits this big. We're going to downsize a little bit here. But before we get started, let's talk about some of the equipment, and we're going to concentrate first on deep trolling, power trolling, deep water. So if we're power trolling deeper water, Les Smith helped design a rod from B&M. It's called the Power Troller, and it is a big, stiff rod, but it's still got a great tip that you can see the bite, and it's made for heavy weights. And when I say heavy weights, when I did the show with Les, I was like, wow. We were using up to 3-ounce sinkers. If you didn't hear that, that is solid, but up to a 3-ounce sinker, okay? That's why these power trolling rods were made by B&M. And again, Les is good at this technique. That's why he has got with Jack and helped design this rod. You need something with an ultimate backbone if you're going to be trolling 3-ounce sinkers. Now, a lot of guys will use the mono, anywhere from an 8 to a 10-pound test. Some guys will use a braid, but then they'll go with a leader after the weight, and we'll talk about that later. I love my high vis, of course, slime line. 8 to 10-pound test, you should do fine. If you're using the heavier sinkers that we're going to talk about, definitely go with the 10-pound test. So we talked about the 3-ounce sinker. We've got braided line or a 10-pound slime line. Now, from that sinker on down, you're going to have a swivel and you're going to have a leader, a clear leader. And that, you can go with anywhere from a 6-pound test to an 8-pound test. I prefer the 6. And again, I'll go with something clear then, but it just breaks things up, makes it a little bit narrower, and you'll get more bites that way. Now, as far as the baits we use, a couple different things, but we're going to stick with the deep water. Les will use some of the fin spin regulars, or also the Pro Series, but we'll stick with these right now. And again, if you're in the South where those fish are big, they want that big bait, I want to show something as big and bulky as I can. So what we did on that show, and this is what I like to do if I'm in the South, is it's called a mini skirt. And all that is, it's a little plastic or silicone skirt. You can put that right on the fin spin. So now, you're not only got that blade on there giving you action, but you've got that skirt, and you can see that skirt fluffs out, okay? So it's making it a little bit bigger. Water's going to be bouncing in and out of there. Now, you can take any one of the crappie magnet plastics, and again, sticking in the South, deeper water, bigger fish, more aggressive. I want something big bodied, and this is what Les likes to use too, and that's called a slab curly. And you can see that's a big bait, and when you see this thing in action in the water, especially if you can picture it going 1 to 1.5 miles per hour, you are getting super action on this thing. So you take that fin spin you've already got, and now you've got the mini skirt on there. You're going to put a slab curly on there. And now you talk about a big bait. That is an awesome looking bait, ton of action on it. And like I say, you're going a mile to a mile, half an hour, so that's what you want. So concentrating on the south, that's the equipment we're using. The other thing is, we talked about how heavy or how thick these rods are and everything. You need to have rod holders that's going to hold up everything. I love the Drift Masters. If you watch either one of these shows, both John and Les use them also. That's all that's on my boat. They're American made. They've got a lifetime warranty, and they are firm, okay? So when you've got 3-ounce weights, 16 to 20 foot rods out there, you need something that's going to be able to hold up. So I like the Drift Master for that. So that's the equipment we're using. Let's talk about the pattern itself. So here's the technique. It can be used year round, but it is especially effective during the summer months. The spawn is over now. That water's heating up. You have a lot of guys pulling crankbaits, especially in the south, but power trolling can be absolutely fantastic. There are a couple different areas you can look for. You can look for drop-offs in deep water, but you can also get on those long, deep flats. The one thing that you want to keep in mind is, where is your thermocline? If the thermocline is there, and it's distinctly, you see it on your depth finder, normally those fish are going to be just above that, so that's where you're going to want to set your depth. If they're a little bit shallower because of the thermocline, you may not want that 3-ounce sinker. You may want something just a little bit smaller. So you want to adjust according to the depth you're fishing. If you're on those deep flats, and the show we did with Les, we did not have a distinct thermocline, and we seen on the depth finder that those fish, we were in anywhere from 17 to 20 foot of water. If those fish are located towards the bottom, and again, you're going at that fast speed, go with that bigger weight. That's when we went with the 3-ounce weight. But look at your depth finder, know how to read it, figure out your thermocline, figure out where those fish are, and then adjust the size of the sinker. So we talked about drop-offs. We talked about you can do it on long flats. What we did in Arcabella, we actually worked a long flat, okay? So we just worked it back and forth. The pattern is locate those fish on your depth finder, get your speeds going, and you may have to adjust your speeds. You may start at 1. They may want something with a lot more action, so you may speed up, or you may be getting some short strikes, maybe slow down a little bit. There's one benefit that power trolling, especially in deep water, may have over long line trolling, because you can also long line this time of year. But one of the benefits that you'll have with power trolling is, if you're going across a big school of fish and say you got 2 rods, 3 rods going down at the same time, if you're long lining, you're basically going to keep on going because all those lines are out the back. But if you're power trolling, if you need to, say you've got a big school of fish, you can actually slow down right now because those rods are in front, and you can actually stay concentrated right over where those fish are. So that's one of the big benefits to power trolling over long lining in the summer. The other thing is, a lot of people think that during the summer, those fish don't bite anymore. And I think it's because the way we still think, some of us, is, everybody can go out there during the spawn and get them when they're in 2 foot of water and they're aggressive. Fish still have to eat to survive. In the summer months, it can actually be better. We have to change our patterns. We have to change where we fish, the depth that we fish. And summer, you have less cold fronts coming through, so the bite can actually be better. So give power trolling a try on this. Now, one of the things we talked about in the gear check part of this seminar is the big weights, whether it was 3-ounce, 2-ounce, whatever. One of the things it does is, if we've got those baits down and we're going 1 to 1.5 miles an hour, I don't want those baits clear back here. I want them basically staying vertical down, and those big weights are keeping them down where we need. So that's the big reason for using the sinkers. Okay, so we've went over now the equipment that we use. We've went over areas to look for, how to locate those fish. Now I just want to give you some tips for power trolling in deep water. First of all, go with whatever rod holder system you're comfortable with. Of course, Driftmaster makes a T-bar system. They also make individual rod holders. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. Me personally, I like the single rod holders because if one hits, the other ones aren't moving. But with this technique, you're going so fast, you're going to get multiple hits anyways. The other thing, and here's a big tip, and actually I want you to watch this next video section. This is Les using a little plastic or ceramic bead that he gets from Walmart in the jewelry section. This bead is critical because if you're doing this, normally you're fishing with a buddy, and you know how it is when we're just fun fishing. We're talking, you know, shooting the crap about this or that. You could miss a bite, especially if it's light. This bead system is a tip that is pretty awesome, but I'm going to let Les show you this in this next video section. Here you've got little beads near the end of your tips. Can you tell the folks what that's all about?
Yeah, what that is, you know, lots of times you'll lose a little interest, or you'll be talking, or on the phone or doing something, and it's just not paying attention at a certain time. You'll hear that bead when it pops. It has to be glass, because against that fiberglass, that's the only thing that will make a noise.
Yeah. What reminded me, the first fish that we had hit when you and I were talking, I heard that, and then I looked over and seen the rod. So they definitely will tip you off that there's a fish on there.
Absolutely.
Another tip is if the fish are finicky. You know, I like using my plastics. I'm not a big minnow guy, but there are times absolutely I'll have to go to a minnow. When I'm power trolling, normally it's just the plastics, but if that bite is finicky, you may have to go, a couple things. You may have to go from that big bait, you may have to downsize a little bit. You may have to go to a small, just a regular crappie magnet, okay? Something just a little bit smaller on there. You may just have to go to the fence bend. The other thing, if it's real finicky, you may have to tip these with a minnow, but most of the time with the stable weather and everything, you'll be good just going with the plastics. But pay attention to what the fish are telling you. Do they want the live bait? Are they chasing the bait? And here's one thing that live scope can help too. If you've got the live scope out the front, you'll actually see some of these fish. What are they doing? Are they chasing that bait and just absolutely hammering it as soon as they get to it? Are they going up to it and then just staying there or backing off of it? Adjust the size of the bait. Know if you've got to go to minnows. Know if you have to slow down. Let those fish tell you what they want when you're power trolling. That goes for color also. You know, you've heard me in seminars, there's a lot of times that it doesn't matter what color you throw. They're going to hit whatever it is. But there are certain times that color is so critical. So start out with a lot of different colors. Let those fish tell you what you need to dial into. So there's a few little tips for helping you power troll in deep water. Now, part two of this is, can you power troll in shallow water in the summertime? A lot of people feel that you have to go deep to catch fish in the summer, but that's not necessarily the case. So now we're going to talk about power trolling in shallower water, and I'm talking anywhere from 6 foot of water to 8 foot of water. What you want to look for, same thing, if you've got a long flat, 6 to 8 foot of water, or you may have a section of water where it may be 6 foot deep and you've got just a little ditch that runs through there. It may be 1 to 2 foot deeper than anything else. If you can follow that, the contour lines on your depth finder, just those little ditch areas in 6 foot of water can be absolute dynamite. Here's some of the differences that we'll do going to the shallow water power trolling as opposed to the deep water. First of all, let's talk about the rods. And for this section, we may refer to my good buddy John Harrison, who didn't let me catch very many fish that day. But John power trolled. Same time I was shooting the show with Les, the next day we went out and shot with John, but we did the complete opposite as far as deep and shallow. We went shallow, and John had that little ditch area in about 6 foot of water that we talked about. Because we're going shallow, there was no need for the big 3-ounce weight on there, okay? So if we're not going with weights that are that big, you won't need that power troller if you're in shallower water, because we're using a lot less weight. So in this section, you'll see with John Harrison, he goes with the Pro Staff trolling rod. This is still a pretty stiff rod, gets the job done, and again, we're going to be in anywhere from 6 to 8 foot of water, so we're not going to have a 3-ounce sinker. You may go with a 1, maybe a 2, depending on the wind. And John rigs that a little bit different too. Instead of having that egg sinker and then the leader, John has a sinker on the bottom because he's going to be fishing close to the bottom where that ditch is.
I want to show y'all how I'm going to rig my rig today for these fish here at Arthur Butler Lake. We're simply going to take a 2-ounce bottom sinker. We're going to tie it on just like that. We're going to come up about 12 inches and we're going to loop this off. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to pull it just like that. We're going to have about a 10-inch tag line and we're going to rig it with a Pro Series fin spin here. We're going to tip this with a minnow. We're going to run about 0.9 to 1.2 mile an hour.
So you have a weight on the bottom. The line will come up anywhere from, again, 8 to 10 foot of water and just one jig out the side. Now, another thing that John likes, instead of the regular fin spin, he likes the Fin Spin Pro Series. And I'm telling you, this bait is probably one of the hottest baits this spring on that we've used. We did a couple shows for next year's season, long line trolling, and these things are absolutely dynamite. This is what John likes to use. Now, John likes to tip his with a minnow. He doesn't put the plastic inside. He just goes with the Pro Series Fin Spin, tips it with a minnow. I told you how John sets that up. Now, with the weight on the bottom and the line coming out, normally he's got about 10 inches of that line coming off to allow that bait to swim freely and get it off of that main line. But John's doing the same thing again, same speeds. He's looking for those aggressive fish. And again, John gets the guy down in Mississippi. So you see the fin spin, it's still pretty big bait, but now you're throwing a big minnow on there. So you got a big bulky bait. Again, if I'm doing this up here, say Delaware Lake. Delaware is a great summer lake. I'm not going to have a minnow this big. If I'm going with live bait, I'm going to go with a smaller minnow. But to be honest with you, on Delaware, I would probably go with a Pro Series fin spin and then just a regular crappie magnet. I think you'll do just as good, especially if you put a slab bite on there. The one thing I wanted to point out, you don't have to overlook shallow water. Just change some of the techniques that you're using, change some of the baits, and you can be successful both in deep and shallow. If you've got a lake that offers both, figure out where your bigger fish are, give both of them a try, and you'll zoom in on a pattern. Again, it comes down to allowing those fish to tell you what they want or where they're going to be. Okay, that just about wraps it up, folks. We wanted to talk a little bit about power trolling. Again, if you haven't seen the two shows that we've referred back to, both are in season 6. One is with Les Smith in deeper water. One is with John Harrison in shallow water. If you haven't got to see those, go to our channel, YouTube channel, or go to our website. They're completely free. You don't have to join anything, and check those out. And before we leave, I want to remind you that all these things that we've talked about today or that we've showed you, everything on our website store right now is 15% off for a limited time. So make sure you check that out, brushpilefishing.com, the entire store, 15% off. I hope you enjoyed today's little summer seminar. We're going to look into doing another summer pattern maybe here in a couple weeks, so you stay tuned. Hope you enjoyed it. And again, this is just something to kind of fill in since we lost most of our boat and tackle shows this winter. Stay tuned. We've got some big announcements coming up in BrushPile Fishing, but if I tell you right now, my cameraman's going to knock me out. So I'll keep quiet, but there's some big things coming. See you later, folks.